Well, hello everybody, welcome to the program. This is AM Prime here on WESN, the current edition. Let's tell you what's happening. We should be talking with dance instructor and dancer herself, Sonia Dumas, co-director of something called COCO, the Contemporary Choreographers Collective. And they have a program coming up, and we will discuss that for her, the dance festival. Also, we should be talking with Mrs. Karen Nunes Teixeira, who needs no introduction to anyone on this channel. We're talking about her success at prosecuting this matter, pursuing the matter about the death of her husband under an operation at a clinic in San Fernando. It went to the Privy Council before it was settled. Well, what sense did she have that something went wrong, such that she could have pursued it to the extent that the decision came a couple of days ago? We also should be talking with Mr. Kiran Singh. He's the president of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce. Again, this issue is crime affecting people in different parts of the country. And we should be talking also with Mr. Kirk Hogan. He's an attorney. Some of the issues continuing on the matter of the matter concerning Vincent Nelson and others, and the Attorney General, the former Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. Well, the AG is refusing to respond to the Law Association on the question that they've posed to him about the matter, what he should be saying, what he should know, and keep us up to date on that situation. Those things and more on the program this morning. We will take a break, come back, stay with us.
Today we're talking about cosmetic medicine, and we're on set at Relax Med Aesthetics.
We are like famous all over the world for this glow. You could in an airport, you could spot a Caribbean over there. Oh my God, she's from Trinidad.
She's definitely from Trinidad.
Yeah, so I felt like that was something that we needed to feel like we belonged, and we needed to feel empowered that our skin color was really important.
Step we've been waiting for is the chemical peel, right? So I'm gonna start applying.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
What we can tell you also is that this story is on the front page of the Newsday newspaper this morning. The headline is AG blanks the Law Association. Queries on Nelson plea deal remain unanswered. And we'll tell you that the Attorney General Reginald Armour has declined a request from the Law Association for disclosure in relation to the collapse of the corruption case against the former Attorney General Anand Ramlogan and Attorney General Ramdeen. The Law Association made a request in a press release issued last Friday following a marathon meeting at its executive to discuss the controversial issue the previous day. Mr. Armour responded in a letter sent to the president of the association, Sophia Chut, on Sunday, outlining why he doesn't think that it is proper for him to be responding. Well, should he? That's a question we put now to our guest, Mr. Kirk Hogan, attorney at law. Good to see you again, sir.
Pleasant. Good morning.
All right.
How are you this morning?
Well, good, thanks. So let me ask you, does the Attorney General have an obligation, per se, to respond or not?
Well, first of all, I know it's been in the public domain that there's been a request made by the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the first question is, what is the nature of the request made? Is the request one of a FY nature, Freedom of Information request? If that is in fact the case, yes, the AG does have an obligation to respond, giving a formal indication as to whether he would in fact provide the information requested or whether they feel that the information requested falls under the exceptions to the Act. From what I gather, because I've made some inquiries, but from what I gather, there has been a public statement made by the Law Association requesting that the Attorney General make public or at least make available certain information, and several questions were asked according to the statement that the association feels that the Attorney General really should answer to clear up any public misconception. Currently, I think, of course, the association is well within its legal rights to make that request, but it is not, from what I can tell thus far, a binding request on the Attorney General to respond. I think because there had been recent complaints about the association's silence that we would have found this public statement being made. Further to that, the Attorney General, thus far, is also well within his legal rights to say, well, listen, this is a matter that's currently before the court, and issues being asked about are being decided by the court, and therefore I do not feel, as a party to the action, as one of the parties to the action, that I should be involved in any public discussion of the matter that's before the court. And we have to note that this matter, there has been a request to have the pleadings sealed in this matter, meaning that they should not be made available to the public. Right? So I think both parties have a point, but I do think if the association has made a Freedom of Information request, then there needs to be a formal response by the Attorney General if that has been done.
Yeah, before we go into some of the questions, one of them is that the statement is asking him to respond to the notion that Mr. Nelson may have made statements against interest, and I'm trying to get an understanding, a definition of what that means. Is that somebody making a statement against their own interest?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part. And
yeah.
Their own...
Is that somebody making a statement against their own interest? When it is said that somebody makes a statement against interest, what does that mean?
Right. If I heard you correctly, as you can tell, I've been having a little difficulty hearing this morning. Yeah. The audio is not coming through as clearly. Now, a party has all legal right to protect themselves from self-incrimination. And therefore, someone making a statement against their own interest it's a situation where someone has made a statement that is adverse to their own interest, and as a result, they're entitled not to make that statement, or at least not to have it put on record if necessary. That person is entitled to reserve comment and not say anything further on that point. So if we're speaking about the fact that Nelson Casey has in fact made a statement adverse to his own interest, in criminal proceedings, that is a matter for the DPP and the parties to that action to decide. The Attorney General has no role in that part of the proceeding. It would appear that the agreement entered into, from what's in the public domain, was an agreement entered in 2017. If that is in fact the case, that was long before the initiation of any criminal prosecution by the DPP. The AG, at that point, it would appear on record, should not at any point seek or appear to be seeking to bind the DPP, because the Office of the Attorney General has no power to bind the DPP from bringing criminal prosecutions. So there, on the face of it, appears to be some significant questions to be answered. So if I heard you correctly, Nelson QC is not bound to continue giving a statement adverse to his own interest. And given the fact that he has now said that he would prefer to give any evidence, if he does give that evidence, after his civil suit, it means that any prosecution of the matter would be significantly delayed depending on the length of the civil suit. There are many avenues around that. However, none of those appear to have been taken. So in the circumstance, he is well within his rights to decline.
Yeah. And if we are to understand it correctly, that statement against interest is the man saying, Mr. Nelson saying that he participated in taking, we call it a bribe or taking or involving a kickback to the Attorney General at the time because he was getting briefs from the Attorney General on behalf of the state. So that is the state. He's saying he participated in that. Is that what the statement would be?
You have to forgive me. I'm really having some difficulty this morning. May I ask you to repeat?
Yeah. The statement against interest, would that be Mr. Nelson saying to Mr. Al-Rawi as Attorney General at the time that, listen, so I was involved in this thing where I was getting briefs from the state, but then I had to give the Attorney General at the time, who was proffering those briefs to me, kickbacks for doing so?
And I have to apologize again. Could you try one more time? I'm not sure what's happening with the audio.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to get from you, what is the substance of the statement against interest that we're talking about here? That is Mr. Nelson going to Mr. Al-Rawi as Attorney General and saying in the previous administration, so I was getting briefs from the state, and as a result of which I agreed to give some kickback or some part of what I was getting back to the Attorney General who was proffering those briefs on me?
Yes, that apparently appears to be the gist of the situation in terms of the statement adverse to his interest. Now, basically what he would have been doing and what appears to have been done is that he would have given a statement to the DPP and to the police, which would have implicated him in a criminal offense, and which would have been what we refer to commonly as the kickback scheme, where he would have acquired the briefs from the state with a price to be paid, in the sense that he would have had to give him part of the fee to the Attorney General in order to facilitate the benefit he would have got of having the brief. He would have then implicated the Attorney General and the Senator in the offense, and therefore there would have been a conspiracy or collusion by the parties in order for that to happen. One of the statements he indicated, from what appears in the public domain, was that he said that the AG said that many of the office of the Attorney General's salary was too small, which suggests that therefore he needed to have a separate stream of income coming from the money that he was paying out to Nelson KC now. So having made that statement and having entered into the plea discussion, because the primary purpose of the plea discussion was that he would give that evidence against the parties who he has implicated in order to get a discount on his sentence. One of the offenses that he was originally charged with respect to, I think, was misbehavior in public office, was, I think, no longer proceeded with. And therefore, that was one of the benefits he got. As I understand it, that benefit was traded for the giving of the statement, which would have been adverse to his interest, but implicated the then Attorney General and the Senator.
Right. The questions themselves that are posed to Mr. Armour in this case. So this is the Law Association. The president of the Law Association is an eminent senior counsel herself. How is it that she is agreeing to pose questions to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General is saying, well, simply that, well, in these circumstances, I can't answer these questions. So would the association's executive who proffering these questions not know what he could answer and can't answer, or that is too simple a way of looking at it?
Well, I accept that the Attorney General's position, the Law Association's position is that, as I said before, there have been complaints from other counsel within, and senior counsel as well, and members of the public, that the Law Association had in fact been silent. The opposition had made the complaint as I said, senior counsels had made the complaint. And I think this was their approach to indicating that, listen, it's not that the Law Association isn't looking into the matter, but remember, the Law Association is neither a judicial body, so it can make no determination ultimately at this point, except for the disciplinary committee, but there is no matter before the disciplinary committee. And neither is it an investigatory body. And while it can perform an investigation and give its opinion, it has no right to information. The Attorney General has no requirement to report to the association on any particular matter. So, except as a member of the bar and subject to the rules of, the ethics and so forth as an attorney. Outside of that, the Law Association doesn't have much power to exact answers from the Attorney General. And therefore, I think the approach by making it a public discussion was their way of putting it in the public domain, that the Law Association is not staying silent or does not intend to stay silent. Because the reality of it is, as I said, a Freedom of Information request would have yielded a similar or same kind of result. Putting it in the public domain, knowing full well that the matter is subjudice, it may not bear much fruit, because the Attorney General, as he did, would rightfully hide behind that shield, that the matter is currently before the court, the issues being asked about are currently before the court, and therefore, I will stay silent on it. And notice, this was the approach, similar in nature, taken in the previous incident with the Attorney General, with the Florida matter, involving the airport inquiry.
Yeah.
The matter is before the court, and therefore, I am going to stay silent. And leading in from that, it should have been very clear that the Attorney General was not going to say anything about this matter further, especially since it actually involved a suit against the state currently existing in our jurisdiction.
So in your view then, the Law Associations sending these questions to the Attorney General, that was always going to be a non-starter, non-sequitur, as they say?
I would think so. I would be hard-pressed to believe in any other circumstance that he would feel obligated to answer. I think any Attorney General, if I give any Attorney General a level playing field, they would probably have taken the same approach. Because at this point, but for a proper investigation being conducted, and the question is, who should be the proper investigatory authority? Those are the only persons who have the right to demand answers. So the police authority has the right to demand answers. The DPP, to some extent, has the right to demand answers. But that's in their capacity for the purpose of investigating the matter to determine whether there is any wrongdoing. Outside of that, the question of information coming into the public domain is really a question of either freedom of information, where we request the information under the Act, and therefore allow the courts, if the Attorney General refuses, allow the court to determine whether the Attorney General should be forced to display that information. So one of the most important things is the agreement itself. Should the public have access to the agreement? Because the bottom line is, what is in the public domain? The Law Association can't even confirm that it is in fact the agreement that was made. Of course, there's high speculation that what's in the public domain is accurate, but at the end of the day, it has not been provided by any of the parties, and currently, as I said, there was an application to have the matter sealed, and therefore, that agreement may not find its way into the public domain readily, or at least from any official source at this point.
That is the agreement on indemnity.
Yes, the indemnity agreement.
All right, but we'll hear this. So that the Attorney General, in his response to the Law Association, is saying this: a narrative building in the public domain which appears designed by some to preempt the Director of Public Prosecutions from reinstating the discontinued prosecution against Messrs. Ramlogan and Ramdeen when his witness becomes available. What is the percentage of likelihood that this will happen, that Mr. Nelson in fact will become available and will be agreeable to give information on this matter? Because he's saying that the indemnity agreement was broken and he's not coming forward because that was an agreement that he had. He thought it was airtight and it has been broken. The forces on the other side saying that it had to be broken if the matter was going to go forward. There were people who would have to know that this was going to happen, that is what was the deal. And he's saying that in these circumstances, he's not prepared to come forward. To what extent that could change?
Without going too far, let me start by saying, I think what the Attorney General has done is attempt to set the stage for any future failings. Because that is what it would appear to be. On the face of it, the DPP has already indicated that they would not proceed with the matter. He has given no indication that he intends to pick up the matter at a later date as a certainty. that is a speculative prospect. So the idea that, well, the narrative is being created, I think it's already been established. The bottom line is the GPP has withdrawn their proceedings and therefore will not proceed with it. If at some later point the witness becomes available and is prepared to proceed with the matter, it is then again up to the GPP, in whatever incarnation it is at that point, to make the decision whether they will proceed. That is under no control of the Attorney General, and therefore the Attorney General can't even begin to speculate as to whether the GPP can or cannot proceed with the matter, and as to whether the discussion in the public domain would prevent the GPP from proceeding with the matter. That being said, the idea of saying that the narrative is being created seems to suggest that we recognize that, one, this matter may last a while before the court. And even if it is determined within a reasonable time, our greatest challenge is going to be, okay, what prevents the witness from changing his mind even after he is successful in his suit? Or what prevents him from changing his, or from keeping his position if he fails? Because let's consider, if the witness fails in his suit against the state, he would not want to proceed with the matter because therefore he feels the indemnity that he's been offered is no longer valid. The courts have predicted it as not being valid, and therefore he's not going to proceed. So the likelihood of this being the basis, this public discussion being the basis upon which the matter is not proceeded with, seems small at best. This all turns on the fact that this indemnity is now before the court. If the witness fails, he's not likely to want to proceed. If the witness succeeds, there's nothing preventing him from changing his mind, from giving that evidence.
Yeah, what do you make of Mr. Amos saying that, expressing astonishment that this statement was issued in the first place, this list of questions for him to answer?
Well, he has a job to do, much like any other public official. The Law Association felt it had to make its position clear, that it is in fact questioning and looking into the issue. He had a position to be put into the public domain, and I think it helps the narrative of the Attorney General to say, well, listen, the matter is being attended to, we are proceeding, because remember initially when this first came up, the Attorney General basically said that this was not going to be the end of it. As to how he can make that determination, I don't know, at least on the criminal front, because he has no power over those proceedings. So as to whether it can be the end of it, really lies in the hands of the DPP on the criminal front. So for him to say that this was not going to be the end of it, I'm not sure where he would have drawn the confidence to say that from, at least on the criminal front. I don't think he can speak to the criminal aspect of it. As for the civil aspect, he is probably very right. This is probably not the end of it. If the witness succeeds, the witness who's now the claimant succeeds, there's likely to be an appeal, and we may have a stretch of matters running thereafter. And vice versa. If the witness fails in his claim, the converse is true. So yes, he is on the civil front. I should say there is a great likelihood that we are going to see this matter with us for many years. There is a possibility that it could be resolved very effectively, very quickly, but that seems unlikely in the current atmosphere.
All right, we got to leave it there, my friend. Thank you very much, Kirk Hogan, attorney. Thanks for talking with us.
Welcome. Always glad to be here. Have a good one.
All right, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, we share with you some of what is happening in other destinations around the region. There's a story in Barbados where taxi drivers are appealing for an increase in their fares. That and much more to come. Stay with us.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Secret Girls IC School presents Wonderland, a bazaar with a difference.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many prizes from adult punch board, hoopla, tin pan alley, and much more. Don't miss the many giveaways and surprises for all kids. Kids, are you ready for face painting, sweet parang, teaching music, Santa workshop, kids corner, dunk tank, wheel of fortune, and so much more? Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, comes alive, 12 noon to 6 p.m.
Wonderland!
Welcome back. Our guest at this moment is Ms. Sonia Dumas. She's co-director of an organization called COCO. It stands for Contemporary Choreographers Collective, and they're having a festival. It surrounds what is called the Resilience in the Dance World with the upcoming Dance Festival 2022 in its 14th year and celebrating the ability to stay afloat as a dance enterprise that nurtures young dance talent in many forms and showcases work from emerging to established contemporary choreographers from around the world. Sonia, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
All right. So let's talk about this.
Well, we are on this weekend at Queen's Hall, and it's on Saturday, 29th of October, Sunday, 30th of October, both nights 6 p.m. And we have a really huge slate of offerings for you, coming from all parts of the world, as you said. We have from the United States, we have from Barbados, from Jamaica, and also from Mexico, and of course, Trinidad and Tobago, because that's really our focus. Our focus really is to have a kind of platform to help people present their work in a very professional way, in a very produced way, to have something to show for their work on a stage.
Yeah, I'm interested in the work involved in nurturing young dancers to keep this tradition going.
Yes. Well, what happened was that I used to be at UTT as one of the sort of movers and shakers of the dance program. We actually, with another friend of mine, Nicole Wesley, colleague, we had started the dance program. And what happened was that we felt that we needed to give them more opportunity to be the creatives that we were developing. So aside from the teaching that we were doing inside of UTT, we decided to have a concert, a platform where the same young people from UTT, from UE, from elsewhere, anywhere, could come and nurture their own creative juices. We did it for contemporary dance, especially because we felt that the other dance forms or the other dance practices actually had their platforms. The folk tradition had its platform, the ballet tradition, the hip-hop tradition, etc. So we felt, look, let's do it for contemporary dance, because that's a sort of a niche in the market that we haven't really seen, and it's something that we both of us were practitioners in, or are practitioners in, and that's how we started. And so what we try to do, not only on the stage, but off the stage, we have sort of outreach to young people who might have some kind of interest in dance. So we've gone as far as Guayari in our Cocoa in the Community exploits to teach children or to expose children, young people, to the artistry that is dance.
And so what is contemporary? And does that change from time to time? Because there would be a period when well, my understanding of the term would be that at some point hip-hop would be contemporary, because that's what's happening now, no?
Yes, 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 indeed. And in fact, a lot of contemporary dance incorporates other forms of dance. So you have contemporary ballet as well. So it's more of a, I would call it a declaration and a mindset about individual sort of approaches to movement. Whereas you have a language in hip hop, you have a language in ballet that is codified, everybody recognizes. Contemporary is a practice. Contemporary dance and the making of contemporary dance is more of an individual statement about how I knit this thing together. I take from different forms, just like hip hop. A lot of contemporary dance brings in that type of sort of body weight movement, etc. From hip hop, and hip hop comes from, if you look at capoeira, the Brazilian art form, the Brazilian dance fight form, you can see a lot of the elements of hip hop in capoeira. And so people may take from capoeira as well. They might even take from ballet. They might take some of the aesthetics of ballet and put it into their very individualistic statement about how they feel about dance, movement, time, space, and movement. And that is what really becomes contemporary. It's a contemporary statement about how I feel about the movement around me and how I've taken it and made it my own.
Yeah. When you say your team went as far as where you said that, Guayari, talk about that kind of outreach activity and programming.
What happens is we have a program called Cocoa in the Community, and when we have, not only when we have people visiting, international visitors, but also we ourselves, we go into communities, be it schools, be it community centers, and we've gone to Toko, for instance, and just help the children explore what their own creativity is through movement. And we connect movement to different life skills, so that we, about resilience, the same word you use at the beginning of this conversation. It's about decision making. It's about sort of teamwork. That kind of stuff can be incorporated into the dance practice that we share with them. So we would have short workshops, and we would also encourage them to think about life in terms of dance, even if they're not dancers, and how the things that they learn in dance class or the dance session that we bring to them can help them in other aspects of their lives. And it's not just children. The latest major Cocoa in the Community event that we've had is actually for teachers. It was actually for secondary school teachers of dance. We teamed up with the Secondary Schools Dance Educators Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and we had free dance classes by Nicole Wesley. She was my colleague at UTT, but she's now in Texas State University. So she came down and gave teachers a kind of 2-day workshop, one in Tobago and then one in Trinidad, of how to deliver the syllabus that they have in the school system in a more efficient way and a more sort of amplified way using the techniques of improvisation. So we have a set of activities that we do off the stage that we also hope will help people.
What is the statement behind doing that kind of thing, going to different parts of the country on this mission, if you want to call it?
Not everything is in Port-of-Spain, first of all, and there's so many creativities all over our country, and we want to try and get people who don't actually have a lot of access to dance, so that a lot of people, there's no, as far as I know, there's no sort of major dance school in Guayari or, in Toco or what have you, so that we would kind of try to fill in that gap, at least temporarily, so that we can bring the dance to the people who are interested in it. And people who might not know they're interested in it, because some of the children didn't know they like dance until they did it. So it's a kind of introductory to an introductory kind of session to the practice of dance, and that dance is not one thing. Some people think dance is carnival. Now, dance is a huge component of carnival, but that's not the only type of dance. So here it is. We're giving you the tools wherever you are in the country, because we've had a lot of workshops as well back in the day. We used to have workshops in Tobago as well. Through UTT, we would go and do those kinds of things as well. So that it's just to let them know that dance is an option, and I think that's really the major drive behind when we go out there, and that anybody can use dance, the tools of dance, to help with their life skills.
Yeah, you say the organization it's in your 14th year of existence, and you're celebrating the ability to have stayed afloat, stayed afloat during this period. And you're talking about, of course, about having had to come through what visited us on this pandemic and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was
involved?
Sure. What was involved?
We went online. We went completely online. What happened was that we decided, look, either way, we are going to do it. We're going to do it. How do we do it? Well, we have to do it online. So again, as a sort of testimony to the power and resilience of dance, we said the pandemic is not going to stop us. So that is how we came to the conclusion that we should go online. And we didn't expect to go online for 2 years because we didn't expect the pandemic to last that long, but that's what we had to do. So that's what we ended up doing. And I think it was a really, people told us, wow, people in Trinidad and Tobago especially, they said, you kind of devised a new model for delivering dance. And this is something that you should really sort of hold on to. So yes, it is. It's something we can hold on to. And what we did is to expand our website so that we could upload some of the content that we had in those sessions, those online presentations of 2020 and 2021. And that was good, but it's always nice to be dancing in person and live. So this year, what we did, in the spirit of understanding how online has had an impact for the last 2 years, and how people, dance artists all over the world, had to create dance online and make not a dance video, but dance on video, which is a very different thing because you have to make different choices about how you present your work now that you only have a small screen in which to have people look at your work. So in the spirit of that, what we did is we have this particular festival, we have a hybrid festival, so that we have in-person performances from all over the world, as well as video performances from all over the world. So you'll get to see dance on video, created only for video, and you'll get to see live performances as well. So that is what we're presenting today, or at least this year. And we're very excited because although we've done it before, we're doing it in a much more amplified way now to have this kind of hybrid festival. And we hope, and it's also going to be streamed to those people outside of Trinidad and Tobago that would like to see the festival, because we do have a small and very growing, very enthusiastic international following.
Yeah, of stuff like this that comes from Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, for sure. Because we are really the biggest contemporary dance festival, I think, I want to say the whole Caribbean, but definitely the English-speaking Caribbean. There's no other festival that you can find online that, as far as I am aware, and as far as other people have told me outside of the region, that starts to talk about contemporary dance in the way that we do. So, and then has been so consistent. We sort of, what we have is bad mind, I always say, because we have very little funding. It's largely voluntary in terms of the people who run it, the people who support it, the people who make it happen. Even the dancers, even the choreographers, in a more developed kind of festival economy, where all festivals are sort of given their equal due and attention, we would be able to pay people to come to the festival. We would be able to pay artists, etc. Right now, artists pay to come to Coco.
Yeah.
And I think that's testimony to our appeal, because you have to go find money somewhere in Europe or the United States or somewhere in the Caribbean to get the tickets to come. Your whole group has to come. You have to find accommodation, you have to find meals, and you have to find yourself in the theater, okay? And all for free, because you want to be a part of this, because this has been around. We've shown that we can stand the test of time, and we really like to embrace people who are so committed to their dance work. But we would love to pay them, but we haven't reached there yet.
Yes.
But we still have the bad mind.
Yeah, bad mind for good.
You have to have more bad mind in COVID.
All right, so just go over the dates, when people can see.
It's this weekend at Queen's Hall, 6 p.m. each night. It's Saturday, October 29th, and Sunday, October 30th, 6 p.m. There are two different shows. And I would be remiss if I did not talk about our great workshops.
Go ahead.
We're having workshops for anybody who wants to shake a leg. And certainly we have one on Saturday that is a Brazilian dance workshop that is run by Rainey Demerson. She's out of Barbados via the US. And then we have on Sunday, we have Kieran Sargent at, I think it's 11 o'clock. And he is teaching a kind of Afro-Caribbean class, hopefully to help the students of the theater arts program, because he'll be teaching bongo and limbo. And then, because those are on the syllabus of the theater arts syllabus curriculum now. And then we have at 1 o'clock, we have the Astor Johnson Repertory Dance Theatre, talking about the spirit of Stay Up Zimbabwe and the Astor Johnson technique as it happened inside of that very, very famous dance, that the music of which is by Brother Valentino. It was a collaboration between Valentino and Astor Johnson back in 1979. And because this is Astor Johnson's 50th anniversary year, we thought it's only fitting to talk about one of our major dance figures inside of the festival.
Yeah, and there was a big write-up about that, I think, in one of the papers a couple of weeks ago. All right,
yes.
So the Coco Dance Festival 2022, Sonia Dumas, thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you so much, and I hope to see you there.
Well, I should be. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. So as we head up to the top of the hour, let's take a quick look at some of what is happening around the region. We go to Barbados, where there's this story. The taxi drivers there are asking for an increase in the fares, and they say it has to be significant. We have a report from CBC News. Let's check that out.
It was last week that Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Transport, Works and Water Resources, Santiago Bradshaw, raised the prospect of a fare hike for taxi operators. She said an application by operators for a fare increase is being favorably considered by the Cabinet of Barbados. There hasn't been an increase for players in the sector for over a decade, and those in the city believe it's long overdue. And they don't want just any increase. It must be substantial.
To make it feasible for a taxi driver that working at the airport, actually for the government tariff, it will have to be 65 to 75% increase on the tariff. If not, it isn't saying anything. With the prices of gas in Barbados right now, it won't be saying nothing.
You want at the airport, I don't know how anybody could live off of that, how you could support yourself, your family, or even to maintain a car on that. You can't. So just waiting to see what will happen.
And while there is no debating the rates operators at the airport have to charge need to be increased, there is mixed reaction on asking locals to pay more.
Do you think that the locals can handle an increase, can bear the cost of an increase of taxi fare?
Everything gone up, so the taxman is the scapegoat. Yeah. No? A taxi man is the scapegoat now. It come to me if you can afford it. No, it come to taxi man. It's affording it now. But for everything else, to put the money and pay, good effects, no, anything, put money and pay comfortable.
See the locals and this increase of fear, I tell you, it is problems. Because people can want to pay no more money. You can't charge them on, just charge them on $20, they come and charge you 30. You ain't gonna get it, you know what I mean? More people can catch your bus, so your bus can get out behind on me.
People will start catching taxi. The bus service in our ballot before.
Minister Bradshaw has said a standardized rate will be announced soon.
All right, from Barbados, we come to Grenada, where there's a discussion about benefiting from the Sustainable Development Trust in that country. We have a report from Grenada's GIS.
Local community-based organizations and cooperatives are benefiting financially from the Grenada Sustainable Development Trust Fund. The GSDTF was established in February 2016 by a committee of representatives from government, non-governmental organizations, civil society, and private sector, with support from the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund and its donors. In order to benefit from the GSDTF, projects must be focused on marine and terrestrial resources, with emphasis on climate change mitigation, hazard risk reduction, and adaptation, as well as activities related to human development and pollution reduction. Recently, a few local organizations received funding from the GSDTF to promote and continue the work they do in communities throughout the country. They are LVP Trading Inc. with the revitalization of the Mongazo Nature Reserve Project, Bushes Eco Development Association Inc. with the Dragon Bay Visitors Management Plan and Capacity Building Project, the Guave Fishermen Cooperatives Society, who is focusing on developing products for alternative markets, and Best Practices Farmers Movement Inc. with the project to improve farmers' livelihoods. Program Officer with the GSDTF, Abigail Oliver, outlined the criteria for persons interested in applying for funding. She was speaking with GIS at a recent public engagement activity put on by her organization in the south of the island.
We have community-based organizations, and these organizations must be operating within 12 months, and they must have a solid team. So if, for example, a project lead administration and also a technical support team. And for persons to be eligible, they have to be a physical or operating account. Make sure they're operating effectively, and we were able to get the minutes of the meetings and take it from there in monitoring and evaluation.
Ms. Oliver says a call for proposals is currently out and interested persons can apply.
Right now we have a call for consultancy that's for the marine protected area, and from there our second call will be specific to the marine protected area itself. Our first call, it was broad. So it is with both marine protected area and sustainable lives and livelihood.
The Grenada Sustainable Development Trust Fund can be contacted via telephone number 232-0867.
This is AM Prime here on WESN. We take a break for the news. At the top of there, we continue after that, so stay with us.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Tutor says rest and reflect options still on the table. Karen Nunes Teixeira offers word of advice following victory in a lawsuit. Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Minister meets ruler of Ghana Kingdom. THA Minority Leader questions validity of proposals. And internationally, Germany plans to legalize recreational cannabis. Now for the details. Newly elected tutor president Martin Lumpkin says rest and reflect days are not off the cards just yet for teachers. He said should negotiations continue to go downhill, tutor led by the executive will take the necessary actions.
We as officers are guided by the General Council of Tutor. And if it is that the General Council, the majority of persons in the General Council would want to have more rest and reflection.
Former Minister of Finance Karen Nunes Teixeira says that 18 years after the death of her husband, she has finally been vindicated, but the process was too long to justice. She spoke on the outcome of the case on WESN's Talking Point, where she gave advice to persons who may be in similar situations.
What I would say to anybody who has to fight this fight, good fight that I had to fight, I was lucky that I was grateful that the expert witnesses were highly regarded. And when you read the judgment, you know that is so, were willing to assist me and I was given the advice to do it jointly so that if they were able to get to somebody, and I'm not saying they did, but if they were, they couldn't touch those in Barbados and Jamaica. And that's a sad reflection on the profession.
Nunes Teixeira sued the private hospital and a specialist doctor over her husband's death during a routine operation in 2004. Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Dr. Amy Brown met with Nana Asafo-Boyeki III, ruler of the Sanzuli Kingdom in the Eastern Nizama District, Western Region, Ghana, during a courtesy call on October 20th at the ministry's headquarters. This is Nana Boyeki III's first visit to Trinidad and Tobago. During the courtesy call, Minister Brown emphasized the value placed by Trinidad and Tobago on its bilateral relationship with Ghana. Nana Boyeki III, in turn, recalled the assistance rendered by Trinidad and Tobago during Ghana's fight for independence and, in particular, the efforts of an esteemed Trinidad and Tobago national, George Padmore. THA Minority Leader Kelvin Morris is questioning the validity of the 24-hour proposal granted by THA to contractors. Speaking on WESN's AM Prime, Morris said that this is a clear indication of corruption.
And we are talking about a company that is Trinidad-based that was able to mobilize workers, mobilize equipment, and they were on site all within the space of basically 24 hours. You just received a letter of award, and that says to me, any layman would assume that that person would have had to have the assurance beforehand that they were going to get the job. And that speaks to a whole situation of collusion and corruption.
In international news, Germany's coalition government has agreed on a plan to legalize recreational cannabis use among adults. Possession of up to 30 grams for personal use would be allowed. Licensed shops and pharmacies would sell it. The plan still requires approval by the European Commission and German Parliament. Health Minister Karl Lauterbach said the plan could become law in 2024. In the EU, only Malta has legalized recreational cannabis. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Well, Welcome back to the program. This is AM Prime. Our guest now is no stranger to these facilities, to these premises, and what you're looking at. Karen Nunes Teixeira, former Minister of Finance in a PNM administration a decade ago or so, or more than that. And we're talking now about contesting for the position as political leader of the party, as well as the triumph she had in the courts about the death of her husband after a medical procedure. What did that take to get to the point where she was awarded $18 million for what went wrong? We talk about that and we get to the issue about the contest for political leadership in the ruling party, the People's National Movement. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me, Andy.
I'm going to start by asking about this journey from where you felt it was necessary to try and get some justice for your late husband and to where it got to more than a decade later.
Well, from the very beginning, it was all about for him, because he was 53 years of age. As far as I was concerned, he had a lot of living to do. He had a lot of plans, and he was, I know it was my husband, but I think you can ask nearly anybody, he was really very beloved. He used to organize a Grissom Boys Christmas party for the children. He was very much involved when we went to live in the East in Fort Zata, making it a children, a community band, and working with Field every month to give out packages to those disadvantaged. And his whole life, and a better son, a better sibling. I mean, I have all the praise for him. I tell my daughter, and he has another daughter, you couldn't be prouder to have Russell Teixeira as your father. So I couldn't let his death just go like that. I
he was a national footballer.
A national footballer, but I didn't know that at the time. Maybe that's why he married me. I didn't know who he was. I was anyway,
captain of the national team.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. So maybe that made me. So he knew I wasn't attracted to him because of that. But to be more serious, I said, you know, that is why you get change in the United States, change in England in terms of medical negligence, especially United States, because when doctors are held accountable for malpractice, then of course it causes change within the hospital system to address the issues that would have brought about that. And at the end of the day, both the doctors and the potential patients will benefit. So for me, it was not, my husband deserved not to be forgotten. And I know that's the reality. He would have been forgotten after a year or two. And they would have gone on with their lives, driving whatever cars they had, living wherever they had. And, you know, they're sorry, but there we go.
Yeah. What was the strength of your conviction that something went wrong and that you wanted to find out what went wrong? And one presumes that you weren't getting the answers you wanted, and then you felt you
First of all, I happened to have gone with him. So because I was teaching in the law school, I was never in politics at that time. No one knew me, but I was a lecturer. So I went with him and was in the room all the time, except when he was in the surgery. So when they brought him back, there was never a time until they took him out. So they could not see. I was a witness in a sense. But more importantly to that was, and I have to say, I have brothers who are doctors, 3 of them actually, all of whom practice in the States. So they understand the system. And I rang one of them the day after for another reason, and he said, Karen, did you go and get your Russell's medical records? I said, are you crazy? He's just died, I can't go down there. I left his car down there. He said, Karen, you ever heard of doctoring documents? You go and get it. So the long and short of that was, I went in the morning with 2 of my sisters and someone else who was able to assist, and they were taken completely by surprise. As a result of which, I did say that...
So that's what's the record of the procedure?
The record of everything that they did.
Yeah.
So, not that they were going to, but no papers were missing, no documents were recalibrated, nothing was done except what had happened. And at first they tried to tell me, oh, the doctors haven't had a chance to meet to look at it. I said, well, he died on an operating table. You're supposed to have done that already. And long and short of it is, I did tell them that if they didn't give me the records, that at his funeral I was going to say that the Gulfview was not giving it to me. Yeah. And I said, you want that to be the headlines the next day? Well, then you won't give it to me. If you don't want that, you'll give it to me. So I think a lot of the evidence that I was able, my lawyers who I want to see at this time, Douglas Mendez, Simon de Labastide, Marcel Ferdinand, and I also surprisingly Kerwin Garcia, who in the early days was involved and never did it with, you know, he did it I don't know what the word is. The pro bono is not the right word, but he did it selflessly. That's a good word to use. And my lawyers have to be paid. Yeah. And so the thing about it is I did send the documents to my brothers in the States. And I said, I don't want to go suing people if I don't have a good case, because I don't want to put them through that. You all are doctors, you know, and I don't want to be one of those who hound down doctors. And they were very satisfied that I had a good case. And eventually...
you know what it was based on? What
it was based on? Because I saw what happened, a part of what happened, and what was consistent with the record. When he came back in, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but he obviously, after doing it too, which was elective, he didn't have cancer, it was an elective process. The major, if you read the judgment, the Privy Council will confirm what I'm saying. The major, and it said so on the form, the consent form, the major risk of TURP is bleeding, post-bleeding. So, you know, my husband was very quiet, so he didn't really tell me much. But I noticed that this young lady, who did not appear to be a nurse, I'm not saying the nurses didn't come in and check, but the person who was actually seen after the irrigation, she was not a nurse, but, and let me explain it. The red thing, pink water wouldn't stop. And then my husband sat up and said, why is this bleeding not stopping? And when my husband said that, I said, Karen, pay attention, because he wouldn't say it like that. And it just turned in. She then got nervous and took the bucket and poured it out and then called them, and they took long, and by the time they took him back, he had gone into hypovolemic shock. The notes of the nurse's notes were there, what would require clammy, nauseous, etc. And last words my husband said to me is, Karen, take my glasses, I feel I'm passing out. And those were the last words I heard from my husband. And, well, the evidence is there. And the expert witnesses, and I will have to talk about the expert witnesses, because on Saturdays, for many people, they can't get an expert witness in a medical case. Without a medical expert witness who has stature in the community, you don't have a case. So you'll have to go up the Caribbean islands. But what happened was, I got Dr. Waveney Charles, may God rest her soul, to look at the documents, and she did an opinion, which I have today, signed and dated by her. And when she was about to meet with my lawyer, she told me, I never forgot the words, Madam, I have to put food in my mouth. So somehow
what was that supposed to mean?
She wasn't doing it, and she had a lab. You could understand. That's what she said. And she withdrew. But she did the good favor to me to give me a list of doctors, eminent doctors.
Because if she did it, what might have been the possible repercussions?
Well, I don't want to speculate. I just know she had a lab, and she said to me that she couldn't do it. And what she said was, Madam, I have to put food in my mouth. So it's open to an interpretation what she meant by that. So, but she says since she can't, she won't do it. She would give me a list of doctors. And thankfully, the doctors I got were top of the line, highly respected. But look at what they had to do and what I had to do. I was advised to do not have one of them give the opinion on both anesthesiology and hematology. For the anesthesiologist, we got an opinion from a professor in Barbados. For the hematologist, we got a joint opinion from a hematologist at UE Jamaica. In other words, you could understand why they did that. Yeah, that's what they did, and I had to pay all four. But you understand why that came about?
Yeah, huh? I saw it, transurethral repositioning procedure.
Resection of the prostate, which is something instead of doing, I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, but I think they put a thing inside the penis to draw out the prostate, which is the material that is blocking the prostate so that you have trouble urinating. Right? So it ended up with her withdrawing and me having to have joint statements. And it was just, I don't want to, I will just say these things. And in general, because I could not speak during the matter because it was sub judice, and because they continued to appeal, and every time they appealed, I had to put in a defense as they would get judgment against me. So I had to spend a lot of money. People thought I got money. I didn't get money. I kept spending money all the way up.
That's a critical point. You heard you make it yesterday, and I wanted to go into that a little bit. That, so if you had to respond to their appeal, otherwise the judgment will go against you.
I got judgment in default.
Yeah.
So I had no choice but to defend. And the fact that the appeal took so long to be heard at every stage is very telling, because it certainly was not on my end.
Yeah.
And so I think the 17 years was a sort of like a punishment. I took it as that because it was very hard on my family, hard on me too. And I'm not crying and thinking myself, because if I went through that, I can't imagine what other people would have gone through and why so many people don't pursue a matter, because it is really, really difficult emotionally, because you're dealing with your husband's life, your child's father. And so it wasn't, it's not a commercial transaction, and it's very hard for you to get quality expert medical witnesses.
Because I want to come back to the period where, from what I read in the story, I think something was noticed at 3 p.m. and he died at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. What was happening during that period? But before we get there, in other cases, thinking about it yesterday and into the night, I'm thinking about the number of times which you hear something that happens, and people in the situation that they are, people would say, well, everything is in God's hands, because they can't fight it, because they don't have the resources one way or the other. And they say, well,
Okay, so
people,
one of the key things that I had in my favor was I got the documents before anything, even if they were going to or not. So there was nothing. I got the nurse's notes. How the court knew every single thing that they knew was because it was documented by them. And I got it. He died the Tuesday night. Thursday morning, I got it from them. So, in other words, how did you know from 3 o'clock? How did you know what time he came back? Because the nurse had made the note. How do you know he was come back then and his blood was heavily blood-stained, his urine was heavily blood, because the nurse made the note? How do you know that they didn't take him back into the theater till 3:30? Because the nurse made the note. How do you know that when he went, what they were giving him was not cross-matched blood, which is what was required, which it should have cross-matched in anticipation? I think that's standard procedure, at least 2 liters or whatever. I don't know how much it is. Maybe it's pints. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But how did they know that? Because when he got his first set of cross-matched blood, it was an hour later. How you know that? Because the note said that. So either they didn't have it, or they had it and didn't use it. So figure out why. How do you know that he did not? That he was being fluid was being pumped into him, and it was not being monitored, because the notes was saying that. He was saying that when he got a first set of blood, it was something like 7:30 in the night. How do you know? Because the Mount Hope receipts, they had it, and I had it. So there it was. You couldn't say that was not when you got it, and it had his stamp and a time. And how do you know when he started doing it? Because the notes said that. How do you know that they were not monitoring it? And their basic monitoring, I understand from what the expert witness said and what the Privy Council said, about 9 or 10 things you could do. There was no indication that any of those things were done to determine, as you're pouring blood into him, are you monitoring if he's getting fluid overload? How do you know that it was the wrong blood? It was counterproductive, because what they say is the blood they were using, unless it's fresh whole blood, what it does, it dilutes the platelets, and in fact makes a bad situation worse. How did we know all of that? It was there in the notes. So I had the evidence, and they couldn't go behind it.
As attorneys, you all have attorneys use but for. So but for getting that kind of...
Yeah, so what it says is that in a case of negligence, and for people to understand, and I'll use a simple example, to win in a case of negligence, it's not good enough to say that the person was negligent. You have to show that the person who you're suing, it is because of their actions that, but for their failure to do what they should have done, the person, on a balance of probability, because you're dealing with a civil, not criminal matter, so it's the balance of probability, the person would have survived. So who can give the judge that information? It's as an expert witness. So I'll give you an example of how the causation is important. It's an old case, but they've used it over the years. 3 watchmen were on watch, and they drank tea. This is in 1908 or something like that. And they drank tea that was laced with arsenic. They didn't know that. They went to the hospital to which they should have gone, and when they went, the doctor who was supposed to be on duty was not there. He was home. Clearly that was negligence on his part, because you could say, well, if he was there, he would have examined them and knew, right? The nurse called him. He said, basically, take 2 Panadol and come back in the next morning. One of them died. Now, at that time, there was no way of determining the existence of arsenic. at that time in science. So they said, even though he was negligent by not being there, even though he did not examine the patient, it really would not have made any difference to the outcome because they did not have the capacity at that time to test for arsenic, and that is what killed him. So the but-for test is the causation. You have to show the linkage between the hypovolemic shock that he went into, the treatment that he went into, what they call DIC, disseminated. It's a very coagulopathy, but what does it? Takes up all your blood, takes up all your clotting factors to show that the hypovolemic shock, more likely than otherwise, led to the DIC, right? There are other causes, but more than likely than not that is what caused the DIC. That they knew he had DIC because they say I had all the notes when they sent tests. I saw that they knew by a certain time they did DIC, and the treatment that they should have given was counter indicated. And how did I know that? Because I had all the notes. And therefore, they gave him the wrong blood, which both experts, which are highly, highly regarded, said it was counterproductive. In fact, what it did is diluted his ability to clot, and in fact, may have contributed even more so. So the proximate cause of death was the fluid overload. Not managing.
So clotting should have taken place at some point during the procedure.
Yes, if they'd done the right thing, right? First of all, they said he should not have gone into hypovolemic shock because he was not monitored properly. Because even I said to her, I remember when my husband looked up and asked him that, I started looking at the tube because the tube connected to his prostate. So I am watching it and I seen this thing going on and on. So I turned to her and said, shouldn't by this time, shouldn't you have stopped bleeding? She got confused. That's how she looked at me. She went in the bathroom, emptied out this, these huge buckets, and then ran out the room looking for the head nurse. So by the time the doctors came, all the signs, according to the experts, he had gotten into hypovolemic shock. If they had monitored his blood more carefully, should he have that happen? They all say no.
So you were pretty much a witness to the process over these
hours?
Up to
that point, up to that point. But I am, that is me just looking on.
What was going through your mind witnessing what was happening? You may have been seeing, at some point you'd probably see people panicking and trying to...
No, they weren't allowing me to see that. Yeah. But concern I saw, and when I saw that nobody was coming and saying anything to me, I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I'm a lawyer, I was not a doctor, I think so. So I did call one of my brothers who was a doctor in the States. I said,
then, at that moment, at some point during the procedure?
Yes, because I knew something was wrong. I knew that something was wrong. I said, whoever, my brother, I said, I want you to talk to the doctors because I don't know what's going on here. And you are doctors, talk to a doctor, and you come and explain what's going on. So one of them did speak to I'm not going to say what I could see. Because if I said what I could see about the way that his cavalier, what appeared to me to be cavalier, eating his chicken and chips and leaning up against the wall and saying is the aspirin, all kind of stupidness. Anyhow, my brother told him what should have been done, and my brother was really very hurt by it because whenever we went up to the States, my husband would go to him, to do interview, and he was very hurt that he hadn't wanted. But that's another story. So I did try. I was so confused. I did not know what was going on. I just hoping and praying against everything. I just didn't know what I'm telling you. And then what I did when I saw, I realized that this was not going to work out. I got some of my family to come and pray. And then I said, go and get my daughter, go and get my son, and go and get my daughter.
While that was being...
Because remember, I'm in San Fernando, I live it down. Yeah. And I told a friend to bring her down. I said, because I don't think her dad is going to make it. And I don't want her. We had gone to Curacao the weekend before, and here's being here. He didn't say anything because he thought I was supposed to drive us back home. That's what he told me. So I followed his lead. And so she had no idea. And I said, go and get her, because I don't want him to pass without her being here. And my son came down.
Did she make it?
Huh?
Did she make it?
No, she didn't make it.
Yeah. How is it reliving the moments now?
And you know, I've always been very strong until, of course, when I was on the witness box. And then they started asking me more pointed questions, and I realized, you know, you push it under. But like in anything, you know, when you relive the moment. I think I feel, you know, it may be strange for me to say this, but I feel it more for him. I'm so unfair to him. And I feel it so much for my daughter and his other daughter and my son. They all loved him. I felt it more for him as a human being. I said, oh God, you know, he had so much to give, and he was deprived of that. So when I try to not think about it, as you see, I am affected.
I mean, I remember at the funeral, one of the things that stuck with me is that you were talking about how much he was a friend as well as a husband.
He was. And you know, he was, you know, I have to say, I learned so much from him, eh? You know, he's from Nelson Street, but he never carried that big rock or boulder on his shoulder. But he never turned his back. I mean, I have to laugh because they thought I was Miss Prissy. So he would go there.
To Sharon Garcia, I mean,
yes, right. But I was from, you know, Miss Patsy. So when I would go there, he would break up money into $5, $10, and then they would come, hey, Tish, I want to talk to you. Eh? He come there with the money. He never turned his back on his community. And you know what I admired so much about my husband? Because I said, no, I live with you, I will find out who you are. He had a good sense of humor. He used to make me laugh all the time. Eh? He's very, very funny. Eh? And he's very wicked too. Eh? All Greendot is not smile, is my husband. But what I admired a lot about him was, you know, from his football days. I didn't know him from those days. Eh? They see him who got on drugs, who lying down in the canal, who in the bar, who messed up their life. Hey, rat! Hey, Tish! And my husband never, ever turned it up. And not only talk to them, he never came, a lot of people do, come in the car and say, what did I bother me? Never ill spoke them. Never wiped his hands after they hold hand. I say, Russell, let me tell you something. I don't know where their hands were. Eh? So you do all your hand holding and thing. Eh? Sorry. You do the hand holding, especially carnival time, because he maybe played steel band for Zlata. He started. He made. Oh, I want to say this one thing.
Why did they have Blue Diamonds? He was there and so on.
I want to tell you one thing. I mean, that caused a little problem with me because I was a pan widow, right? And secretly, I hoped that they would not make it. I secretly used to hope the medium band would not make it. So when he'd come depressed that they didn't make it to the finals, secretly, thank you, Jesus. So the year that he died, they would medium, remember it was, a medium-sized band. He really made it into a community band for children, and doing a lot of good work and community work. So next year, I said, no, you know, Nicola, that's my daughter, sorry. Nicola, sorry, I called your name. I said, you know what, you have to go and play in that manner to honor your father. So they got the costume, and my daughter went every day to practice. Me, taking her because we living in the East End, and she'd come down by Q-Rep opposite the Massey stores at that time, and she practiced every night. And there she was on the stage and playing, and you know what happened? They came first. Oh my Lord! I still have the costume. I still have for that. I still have the costume that she wore.
Wow.
I still have what he wore on the day he died. I know that might sound macabre, but I can't let it go. You understand it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I can't. The shoes, the pants, and I still have it. The watch, I just can't get rid of it.
Yeah, you shouldn't. It's a hell of a journey, but thanks for sharing it.
You're welcome. And
for sharing it.
I just want to tell people, I know you have to wind up, but one of the things I would tell them is that the Private Insurance, Private Hospital Act needs to be amended, because you should not be able to operate without being insured. You can't put a car on the road unless you have third-party insurance. I don't see anything mandating it. I know some of the hospitals do it, but I'm not sure all of them do it, and that is a big issue. Also, if you're a private doctor in the United States, in the UK, you cannot get your license renewed without paying indemnity insurance. There's no requirement in Trinidad for that. Fourthly, the membership. The membership of the doctors organization, which gives you your license and all of that. I went on their site just to see if I was incorrect. Yes, you can apply to be considered someone with a postgrad diploma or to be considered as a specialist. you can apply. But on the site, there's nothing that tells you these people are specialists, these people are so and so, and that's very unfair. And they did say we'll work on it. This is 2022. I think that they need to put up who is really qualified as a specialist, because not everybody who poses himself as a specialist is a specialist.
Who are called specialists, not necessarily.
Are not specialists. Right. Just take my word for it.
So you're going to be an activist for that kind
but
of
now
thing?
I will be, because I couldn't before, because I was under the sub judice rule.
Right.
So obviously now I would be advocating that it be mandatory that every private nursing home have malpractice or indemnity insurance, because it is not part of the law, and that private practitioners have insurance to be able to get their license renewed. I also want to advocate that they need to standardize some of those documents that they use. In other words, you should name the name of the doctor, the time, there's critical information, because when these things happen, and it must be, and you can't change it because it goes in the computer. And the reason that is so is because time becomes of the essence in cases. And if you don't have all the information on that form, you can say, well, no, I did this at 10 o'clock, when in fact you did it at 12. I'm not saying that happened in my case, but I'm saying those are the safeguards that they need to put in place. And those are the main things: the insurance, the legislation that covers it. And I will tell anybody, get your notes fast.
We got to leave it there. You have to come back for us to talk about the campaign.
Yes.
I'm learning some things here about campaigning for positions.
Yes, and I would love to come and talk about it.
Thank you very much. Karen Eunice Teixeira, and I could say with her in the studio is her manager, former government minister Peter Taylor. Good to see you, my friend. That's our broadcast for this edition of the program. Thanks for watching. I'm Andy Johnson. In half an hour, the guys come in after the news at the top of the hour for today's edition of Talking Point. That's Shah and Small. But for now, we're done here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
WESN.